In the darkest days of World War II, hope often lay just beyond the reach of destruction, concealed in the most unexpected places. Picture this: the shriek of air raid sirens piercing the night sky, the thunderous roar of falling bombs shaking the earth beneath your feet, and then silence. That desperate silence as people dash towards safety, towards structures that represent the difference between survival and oblivion. Today we're uncovering the ingenious, often overlooked shelters that saved countless lives during humanity's greatest conflict. From grand underground fortifications to humble backyard bunkers, these hidden sanctuaries stand as monuments to human resilience. Welcome to the Lost Tactician, where history meets survival and the forgotten becomes unforgettable. Beneath the streets of London, under the gardens of suburban Britain, and hidden within the forests of occupied Europe lies a network of structures most people never knew existed. What if I told you that beneath your feet, or just beyond that unassuming wall, lies a silent witness to history, a place where life hung in the balance? These are not grand monuments designed to catch the eye. They are the quiet guardians of an era when civilization itself seemed to crumble. The scope of this hidden architecture is staggering. Communal shelters that house thousands, improvised refugees carved from desperation, and military fortifications engineered with desperate precision. Today, many have faded into overgrown woodland or been repurposed as museums. Others remain exactly as they were left, frozen in time, waiting to tell their stories to those who seek them out. When bombs rained down on British cities and continental towns, civilians didn't have the luxury of distant battlefields. Their homes became the front lines, and their neighborhoods transformed into zones of terror. The government recognized this existential threat and responded with practical if humble solutions. The Anderson shelter became the symbol of civilian resilience, a corrugated iron structure half buried in gardens across Britain, designed to deflect shrapnel and blast waves. Thousands of families huddled in these damp, claustrophobic bunkers night after night, wrapped in blankets, listening to the whistle of falling ordnance above their heads. For those without gardens, the Morrison shelter offered an unlikely sanctuary, a steel cage that doubled as a dining table by day, and a life-saving refuge by night, its solid tabletop capable of protecting occupants from the weight of collapsing masonry. But perhaps most remarkable was the transformation of London's underground. When the Blitz began in September 1940, despite initial government resistance, Londoners descended into the tube stations by the thousands, claiming spots on platforms and in tunnels where they felt the earth itself would shield them. The government eventually recognized the reality and equipped these underground passages with bunks, canteens, and medical stations, creating an entire subterranean society that existed in parallel with the world above. These weren't sterile spaces, they were communities, complete with tea vendors, impromptu concerts, and, believe it or not, the birth of babies in the tunnel's protective depths. Beyond these organized shelters, ordinary people transformed their surroundings into refuges. Basements became bunkers, cellars became command centers, and railway arches became collective havens managed by neighbors turned volunteers. For soldiers facing direct fire, shelters represented the thin margin between life and death, designed with brutal efficiency and built with desperate speed. At the front lines, the frontline foxhole embodied this necessity, a shallow trench dug into foreign soil, offering minimal protection but representing the soldiers' only hope. These weren't engineering marvels, they were survival itself. Yet the military innovated continuously, developing structures of startling ingenuity. The German Kugel bunker, a single-person spherical concrete shelter, represented the pinnacle of compact design, its curved surfaces deflecting projectiles while its modest footprint allowed it to be hidden among trees and rubble. These ghostly relics still dot the European landscape, mysterious and haunting. Germany's Hochbunker, or flak towers, reached toward the opposite extreme massive six-story concrete behemoths that served simultaneously as anti-aircraft gun placements, command centers, and civilian shelters capable of protecting thousands. Their walls, 18 feet thick in places, were almost impervious to bombing. Many still stand today, monuments to an era of industrial-scale destruction. Meanwhile, the British auxiliary units, soldiers designated as a last-ditch resistance force should Germany invade, constructed elaborate underground operational bases hidden within woodlands. These bunkers featured concealed entrances and emergency escape tunnels, designed so their operators could wage guerrilla warfare from secret positions. On distant islands, Japanese forces carved entire networks of fortified tunnels and caves, creating subterranean cities that became tombs for thousands and sanctuaries for others who survived the war's end, emerging years later into a world that had moved on without them. These structures are far more than concrete and steel. They are echoes of human resilience, fear, and the enduring capacity to find moments of unexpected life amidst apocalyptic circumstances. Daily existence within these hidden spaces defied imagination. In London's tube stations, families established routines, mothers braided children's hair by candlelight, men told stories to distract from the rumbling above, and people somehow found reasons to smile in the darkness. Births occurred in these tunnels. Deaths too. Communities formed among strangers, united only by proximity and shared terror, establishing bonds of understanding that transcended class and circumstance. In military bunkers, soldiers endured claustrophobia and constant alertness, the psychological weight of underground existence offset partially by the fragile sense of security the shelters provided. Yet these spaces also harbored the suffocating fear that the structure above might collapse, that the next explosion could turn the shelter into a tomb. This duality, the relief of refuge coupled with claustrophobic dread, defined the psychological landscape of those who sheltered. Many of these shelters have faded into forgotten corners of the landscape, reclaimed by nature or demolished to make way for progress. Yet others have been preserved as historical sites, their stories told to new generations who can scarcely comprehend the world that spawned them. Museums now occupy some of these spaces, former Anderson shelters, displayed in gardens, underground stations, hosting exhibitions and converted bunkers, presenting immersive accounts of wartime survival. Some structures remain simply abandoned, hidden in plain sight, accessible to those curious enough to seek them out. These enduring monuments prompt a profound reflection on human resourcefulness and resilience. The shelters of World War II represent far more than defensive architecture. They embody the determination of ordinary people to preserve life when civilization itself seemed to be collapsing. They remind us that survival often demands innovation born of desperation, and that the human spirit possesses an almost infinite capacity to adapt and endure. As you walk through your city, pause for a moment. Look beneath the streets. Examine the older buildings. Notice the subtle markings and structures that might be remnants of this hidden history. The past is still here, waiting to be discovered and remembered. The shelters of World War II remain powerful testaments to both the horrors of conflict and the indomitable human will to survive. They remind us that resilience is often built quietly, hidden from view, constructed not by governments alone, but by ordinary people taking control of their own destiny. These structures teach us that true strength lies not in conquest or dominance, but in the ability to adapt, to protect one another, and to endure when darkness seems absolute. If you found this journey through history as compelling as we have, please like this video, share it with those who value our past, and subscribe to The Lost Tactician for more explorations of how history and endurance intertwine. Together, we keep these stories alive. Thank you for joining us in the darkness, and for helping us bring these hidden sanctuaries back into the light.